Hello and welcome to a new video. In today's video I will be trying out some acrylic markers from Ohuhu. They've sent me two sets to try out today. One is this set of 24 colours that comes with two different nib sizes, large nib and a fine nib. It comes with instructions and swatch sheets, which you know how I feel about swatch sheets. And it has a very nice range of colours, as you can see here, and it comes in a really nice carry bag as well, which I always appreciate because it's really nice to be able to easily and comfortably take them places if you feel like making art on the go. And the other one is this set of 24 colours again. The colours are slightly different, there are a few that are similar, but the main difference is that this set is brush nibs. Brush nibs are probably my favourite type of nib, so yes, I can guarantee that I'll be getting a lot of use out of all of these. So starting with the swatch sheets, what I really like about this set is that they give you both a white paper and black paper swatch sheets, so you can see how the colours look on different backgrounds. I'm swatching them out here and they are all so vibrant and colourful. I would have to say, based on a general overview of both sets of markers, they have mostly mid to light tones. I wouldn't say there are a lot of dark tones in this set, which can be quite tricky, but also it makes it fun for me because then it's a challenge of figuring out how to use the colours in a way where the piece you're making has the tones that you want with the colours you've been given. Does that make sense? Anyway, so for today's video, I actually made a post on my Instagram. It is an emoji challenge, so I asked on my story for you guys to send me 3 random emojis and I would try to make characters from them. I then also made a post asking if you guys wanted to join in, so stick around to the end of the video if you want to see all the art that you guys created and submitted. What I did is there were a lot of submissions, over 300, so I used a random number generator to help me pick 4 of the sets of emojis, and those are the ones we will be making today. So I'm starting off with a set that felt honestly like a legendary pull. I was really into Red Dead at this moment, so the fact that it was a cowboy based set I was very excited for. So this one was submitted by Raspberry. It is the cowboy, vampire and nail polish emoji set. So my first thought was a gay or flamboyant vampire cowboy, but then I also thought it might be fun to try and not go for the most obvious when it came to some of these emojis. So I took the nail polish emoji and kind of pushed it into more of a clawed hand. So if this character is a vampire, perhaps they have a more of a beast side, so they have blood on their fingers, or maybe it's just the way their demonness portrays itself in how they look. Initially I wanted to come up with multiple ideas for each of the prompts, as you will see for the first one, but for the rest of them it kind of just becomes one design. I think because my brain was slightly more focused after trying this first one. But for this one, at the moment you can see I've got 2 characters going on. Their designs are quite different, but I feel like they're actually one character, just perhaps at either different stages in their life or just in different outfits. Yeah, I want them to be a sort of gunslinger vampire, obviously. I'm drawing a more fun version of them here, but the other versions that I have of them seem more moody and atmospheric, which is just interesting because this one I'm working on now also looks like quite a young version of them, so it just kind of makes me think perhaps when they were younger they were a lot more carefree and, trigger happy, happy-go-lucky kind of thing, but then maybe something happens that makes them become a bit more reserved, and you can kind of even see that in the designs of their clothes. If you compare the first 2 drawings I did, he looks more like he's hiding a bit in the first one compared to the second one, where he's got open jacket, open shirt, his face is full of, well, you'll see, but it's full of colour comparatively. Color-wise, like I said earlier, this set doesn't have too many dark colors, so initially I wanted it to be quite a like dark, moody drawing with just a bit of color highlights, but I was struggling a bit with it, and what happened to pretty much all of these colored pieces is, while they look different enough, you can very clearly see that they have the same color scheme almost, because the colors in the sets are, like I said, quite limited. But it did make it really fun trying to give each prompt character their own vibe whilst limited. With these colors, I'm like saying the same words, trying to figure out different ways to say what I want to say. But yeah, because of this cowboy kind of ended up becoming like, I refer to him as a sunset cowboy. He looks like he has the colors of a sunset, and I actually really like it. I think it also creates like a nice contrast or contradiction to how he looks, like his moodiness and his trying to stick to the darkness, almost like despite what happens he can't help but still be colorful and bright, like your eye is drawn towards him even if he tries to like hide himself. It was quite fun trying to figure out how to use these colors in ways that meant like there was shadow or like ambient lighting, is that the word that I want to use? Because I then was like, oh well, maybe I should lean into the slightly more psychedelic look, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So yeah, it was a really fun challenge. And then, like I said earlier, the second cowboy is a lot brighter. I kind of had it look like the sun was shining on the left of him, on his right side, but the left when we look at him, which I think makes a quite nice contrast to the first one. So obviously that implies that he either doesn't burn in the sun, or maybe he's the sunset vampire, because at that point the sun doesn't hurt him. So then he comes out a lot at that point, because it is like the time when he can still see the sun. Like maybe he can't come out during the daytime proper, but when the sun's coming down, he can come out with little to no harm, and maybe he misses the sun, so that's why he is like most active during those hours, which would make it interesting as well, because then he could be like a twilight vampire. That would be fun to like draw him in twilight colors as well. Yeah, it just makes for an interesting, I know it's kind of like a bit of a trope with vampires when it's like, do they miss the sun or not? But I think that's quite a sad thing. So maybe having such a colorful, vibrant character having to experience something so sad and then becoming a moody character whose then only joy is the sunset. I don't know, that would be really fun to like touch upon. I also kind of envision him as being sort of a loner, like he doesn't really make connections with people, even when he is this colourful person, because he just like does what he wants. Perhaps he makes enemies easily at that point in his life because he has no care for consequence. But then I'm not entirely sure what consequence could be so bad for him that he then becomes the moody person in the other two pieces. That would be really interesting to try and figure out what connection he could have as someone who has no connections. But yeah, as for the pens, something I love about acrylic markers is you can make as many mistakes as you want. You can change your mind as many times as you want. And with these pieces you will see in this video, there are a lot of moments where I can't make up my mind and I just don't know. I'm non-committal to colours. Being able to cover them up so easily because these acrylic markers are so opaque and strong is always such a bonus, because it means that I can just change my mind if I don't like it. If I want to see how something looks, I can just find out and change it later. So yeah, I was very unsure about the third vampire piece, so I do leave it because I was considering covering it up at one point. I do leave it to come back to later, and while I think about it, I instead move on to the second prompt, which was suggested by the Little Mantis. It was a crown, mouse and moon emoji, and my first thought was to have a mouse of royalty, which kind of turned into a princess mouse. And yeah, I wasn't entirely sure what to do for this one. I kind of went with the more obvious route, I think, by just making them an anthropomorphic mouse. I'm not sure. Yeah, where this one kind of shines for me is with how I use the colours later. I think it turns it into more of a unique design, if that makes sense. So I have her holding the moon and she has a sort of tapestry window kind of deal behind her where the moon very obviously isn't in the sky, because then it's like, did she steal the moon or does she just like cherish it? Is it a metaphor or is she actually holding it? And then for the colours, I realised that I kind of did the colours a bit wrong. I did the shading and stuff on her backwards. It also kind of looked nice, so I really didn't want to change it. And while perhaps it doesn't logically make sense, it also doesn't look that wrong, so I think it's fine. I tried to go with a simple-ish colour scheme for this so that then I could add more details later. So I start by putting the base colours down first and then adding the lighting and shading and stuff afterwards, which is typically how I colour things in general. It was fun trying to make her look like she had fur texture. It was a bit of a challenge because I don't typically do that kind of thing, but I think it worked out well here. And I also really like the contrast of having the bright moon against the blueness of her dress. As for the thing behind her, the tapestry thing I mentioned earlier, I kind of just made it up on the go. It kind of has no proper meaning, but I do kind of like that I put cats around it, because then it's like, why are they there? Does this kingdom of mice idolize cats, or is it a fear thing, or is it to show like a conquest, like they've conquered the cats? So it's like how hunters and people usually put like trophies of who they've won against or who they've hunted on their wall or something. Is that the deal here with the cats? Or perhaps, yeah, maybe they're just allies and it's just a random window. Maybe there are other windows in the house that have like snakes on it or something. Yeah, I really like how this one turned out, because it looks very delicate because of the fine nibs. I could add such like small details, and adding the stars really pulled it together for me. So moving back to the cowboy piece, I had decided to keep working on it because I was like, if I don't like it, I've got nothing to lose by working on it a bit more. So I gave it a third colour of shading and decided to put some sort of clouds in the background, sticking with the sunset theme. I wanted it to look like clouds in a sunset. This is where I first started like messing around with actually blending the pens on this spread, because I do more of that later in the video. I actually get a bit carried away with it at one point. Typically, I don't like blending acrylic markers because it freaks me out of like if I'm gonna ruin the pen nib or not by having it saturated with another colour, and sometimes it can be really difficult to clean the previous colour off. which is another thing that puts me off. For some reason it was really easy with these ones, so that's why later I do a lot more of it. Yeah, I really like this cowboy piece now, and I'm really glad that I stuck with it because the colours are just so fun, and I added a sort of like sparkle thingy on the end of his gun, which really pulls the piece together for me. So moving on to the third one, this one was submitted by Polaroid 16. It is an angel wing, a rose, and I believe it's Saturn. It's a planet for sure. And this one was very intriguing. It is a very pretty set of emojis, and I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do with them. Obviously I wanted to do an angel of some sort because of the wings, but I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to tie the rose and the planet together. So what I ended up doing was this sort of curled up angel, space angel plant character. So she is kind of like, she's made of roses, and I showed this by having it look like the petals are growing out of her, which was really fun to figure out how to do, to kind of have it like molded over her like armor almost. And then I also wanted to have like the rings of Saturn like around her head and her wrists, and I didn't want to put too much detail on her face because I kind of wanted her to be extremely simple, like she is just an idea or something, like perhaps she is a celestial being, so she's got like just basic features, if that makes sense. Yeah, it was really fun to figure out. I left her bald because of the whole planet thing. I was like, I kind of want her head to look like the planet, which was a very weird but interesting idea. I think it worked out well. It also meant there wasn't too much going on and you could see each element quite easily, I think. And yeah, this is when I really started with the blending of the pens. I wanted the rose petals to have gradients, and I think it looks really pretty. I much prefer it to if I had not added the gradients, because I do sometimes get quite tired of my typical way of colouring, which is just like colouring in blocks, because usually I don't like doing gradients. I don't like super blended colours, you know, colouring, but because this was quite messy blending, I think it actually turned out quite nicely, and because there were some blocks of colour, it just kind of, it looked fine, I think. So yeah, because of the whole making her a plant thing, I decided to have her like extremities be green, like as if she were a plant, which I thought was interesting. It is a very weird colour scheme, but I think it makes sense. And to make the her limbs stand out a bit more, I had the rose parts of her that were in the foreground be like the proper true colour of what she is, like the reds and stuff. And then the parts of her that were slightly in the background, they were more of a purple blue. And this just helps it all stand out and differentiate from each limb part. And then I also decided to change her face and neck from being that pale beige, whatever colour I'd used, to a green so that it fits in more with the rest of her. And I much prefer this choice, but it does also kind of make her look like an alien, which is fine because she is a space angel, so like maybe she is kind of an alien. And then for the wings, this again kind of turns into a sunset colour scheme, which I really like. So similar to what I did on her body, I made her back wing more of a purple gradient, and then her foreground wing is the very sun colour scheme, which helps them stand out from each other, but also they just look really nice together. So yeah, that was really fun. And then I used a light blue pen to help highlight like shadows. Like, I don't know why, it's something that I've seen people do and I've been doing a lot lately, but using blue in the shaded areas, even though it's quite light, it just looks really pretty. And I think there's a word for it to do with like specific lighting, but I can't remember what it is. So yeah, I don't know much about her character. I like her design, but something about her design, something about the way she looks kind of makes it hard to like envision an actual story for her. She looks quite sleepy, so maybe she like sleeps in space a lot and she just like floats around. Does she visit planets? I'm not sure. I feel like she would keep to her own business, but then seeing as she is a rose person, a rose being, maybe she does like to come down and visit from time to time to actually look at like other roses. Or maybe she like is like the god of roses or something, and so maybe the roses have like, maybe they do have like thoughts and mental processes and they idolize her, so like it's their own. Sorry, I know I'm like talking about roses as if they have a religion or something. I don't know, but I think you can get what I'm trying to say. It's just hard for me to put into words. But yeah, that's her done, and I quite like how she looks. Okay, so on to the fourth and final one. This one was sent in by egc.arts. It is a sun, dragon, and either mask or demon mask. I'm not sure what it's classed as. And this one I was quite excited for as well. I very much wanted to make a like dragon mask character, and I initially wanted to include like sun themes, but I was having a hard time figuring out how to incorporate, like, I wanted sun clothing or symbolism, but ultimately I just kind of end up with there being a sun symbol behind the character. So yes, I went with a character that has like a pole, you know, like he attacks people with the pole. I wanted to keep the fur mane kind of thing from the demon mask emoji, so it kind of like becomes like a cape for this character. It all stems from the mask, so I imagine it's quite heavy. But I also like the mental imagery of this character like jumping around with their pole and the cape kind of just billowing out behind them. It's not the most practical. I'm very well aware of that. You know, in terms of fantasy, you can just make anything up, you know. You can just say it works. Or maybe the cloak detaches. Maybe it can come off and then they just have the dragon head. Maybe it's a ceremonial mask, so it isn't for fighting in. And it's just for like performing choreographed dances or fighting moves. It doesn't necessarily have to be an actual fighter, but yeah, it was really interesting trying to figure out how to do it. I wanted to keep the sort of like sharp teeth that the emoji also had, which I think really combined well with the dragon vibe of the mask. And then also the long whiskers from the dragon emoji also just looked really interesting, so I wanted to keep that as well. It was interesting. I struggled with it a lot, the figuring out the colours and stuff, because I wanted their outfit to kind of come across as gold, but I was having a hard time getting the colours to look like that, which is why I do eventually go crazy with blending. It might not necessarily look like gold, but it does definitely look more interesting. And again, it is another sunset vibe, which I kind of, it's just become the theme for this video. It was funny because I was originally planning on this character not really having like clothes necessarily, and just having like an outline of their body that would be like coloured in purely black or something, so it was more of a ambiguous idea of what they were. Like, were they a person, were they a demon? But as you can see, it changed. That didn't happen, and I gave them clothes, which I think I prefer, again because also it is extremely colourful, which I think makes quite a nice contrast to their fur cape thing. So yeah, I'm actually quite happy with how this one turned out. by the way, I do actually have a discount code if you would like to try these pens out for yourself. The code is ARTISTSTATIC10. It will be up on the screen for you to see. It will also be down in the description below. It is a 10% discount and can be used on all products on the Ohuhu website, and it is valid from the 25th of February and will last for 6 months. So I'll put a rough estimate of how long, of when I think that will end in the description down below as well. There will also be links to the pens I've used in this video, so if you are interested, head down there to check them out. So yeah, at this point with the colouring, as you can see, I've done a lot of blending. So I do try and tie it back in and neaten it up with some line art. I try to avoid using any type of black in this video, as I'm sure you've noticed. I just really didn't want to for some reason. I didn't want to make it super dark. I wanted to try and just stick to super bright colours. And that's not to say you can't use black. Like, black doesn't make every image immediately dark. Like, I've been using a lot of black lately for super colourful pieces as well. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just didn't want to use any for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. It did add to the challenge a bit, but considering how much I like how these turned out, I think that wasn't a bad choice to make. So yes, that is it for the pieces I've made with these emojis. It was incredibly fun and somewhat challenging trying to come up with characters for them. I really wanted to try and make interesting characters, and I think for the most part I did do that. It was definitely a really fun exercise, one that I would like to do again in the future. So if that's something you're interested in, just let me know. Yeah, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who sent in an emoji set. It was very fun to see all the different emojis you guys sent, and some of them were actually surprisingly similar. Yeah, I want to say a huge thank you to Ohuhu for sending me these pens to try out. I also want to say a quick thank you to my Patreons before we move on to the art exhibition. Disby, Finn Carter, Grimclow, The Waffle of Life, Non-Toxic, Saint Nick's, LP, Kira May, Kay, Joanna, VB, Pretty Rotten, R.A. Foxy, Joanna Snake Moon, Humble Frogs, Local Fishkeeper, Mould Ghoul, Farrar Ware, Sun Arts, Molly Marula, Scout Radley, Sammy Bear 127, Kenzania, Jade S, Arrow, Charlie, Malorus, Jess H30, Cindy King, Art by Lavender, Angel of the Woods, Rainbow Tea, Breaded Nuggets, Neva Thorpe, Lindsay, Humani, The Mothbug, Knox, Catbird House, The Tormented Shadow, Sweet and Hopeless, Pocket, Misfit, Jordan's Tiny Planet, The Coffee Rain, Black Jackal Art, Leela Loves You, Halachu, Faith, A. Wendu, Kozoscobs, Wolf and Wares, Inky Slug, Olivia Gadbor, Heather F, Cheris Needham, Rotting Lettuce, By Nixery, Cyrus Orion, Lolo, Brianna McGraw, Malbon Designs, Cupie Cowpoke, Gamut Girl, Dodo, Muminki, Catberry Studio, Rimrocks, Solar Tortoise, Venom Horror, Auden, Red S Lily, Haley, Sienna G, and Stephanie. Thank you guys so much for your constant support. And now on to the designs that you guys made for these emojis. I deliberately avoided looking at them while I was making my own ones because I did not want to be influenced in any way by any of the designs you made. So now I have been able to take a look at what everyone has made, and I am just like blown away by the creativity of you guys. Seeing all the different creations for the same prompts has been really fascinating, and you guys have sent in so many that I was just like really blown away. So I want to thank you guys for taking part. So I'm really impressed by like how creative and artistic you guys are. So I hope you enjoy looking through these art pieces as much as I did, and I will otherwise see you in the next video.